right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. I just got done watching the Johnny Depp Amber Heard verdict. Shout out to Johnny Depp for finally getting his name cleared. I thought that was a cool moment, so I wanted to throw that in there. Now, first up in bodybuilding news, another professional bodybuilding show, another Olympia qualifier this weekend for men's open bodybuilding. The Toronto Pro Super Show is this weekend, and we've got the competitor list so far. I think there's going to be some names added to this list, but this is the most up-to-date list that we have right now. But again, I think there will be more. So right now you've got Slavoj Bednar, Dorian Haywood, Eslam Muhammad, Andrea Musi, Joe Seaman, Muhammad Shaban, they spelled his name wrong, and Mariusz Tomzakuk. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So it's fun because this is the part of the bodybuilding competitive season where we've got a show like every weekend, and it's fun to have stuff to talk about. I mean, now we've got a lot of qualifiers, a lot of new names are about to be added to the Olympia lineup, and this is the fun part of the job. Is this part of the competition season? So obviously in this lineup, I think the two favorites here are clearly going to be Muhammad Shaban, even though they spelled his name wrong. He just came off a close second-place finish at the California Pro to Charles Griffin. He looked phenomenal there. Assuming that he tightens up for this show, because I think that's what lost him the Cali Pro, was that Charles was a tad bit sharper than him. If he comes in sharper here, I think he's going to blow out this lineup and take the win in Toronto. He was very impressive, but you also have Andrea Musi in this lineup who just took fourth at the Cali Pro. And he looked incredible there as well. He could tighten up here. But like I said, I think those two are probably going to be the top two. Dorian Haywood is probably going to be in that top call-out. He's a guy that's like very, very persistent. He's always kind of in the mix, but kind of not. But in this lineup, I think he's going to be right there with these guys. And now we just have another thing to look forward to. Now, next up in the news, I saw this and I was very impressed. We've got Branch Warren, still looking incredible. At the age of 47 years old, more than half a decade now into his retirement from professional bodybuilding. And during his competitive years, there were two main things that Branch was known for. Really three. One was gnarly conditioning. Two was his insane lower body. His legs were crazy. And three, I guess, would be his insane style of training and kind of the granite look that came along with that, but that had a lot to do with conditioning as well. And again, pushing 50 years old right now, half a decade into his retirement. Look at how crazy his legs are. It looks like he hasn't really lost a beat. I mean, he still looks very comparable to how he looked 5-6 years ago. And I got to say, it's cool to see that he's still got it. One of the coolest things that he's done was starting that Wicked Cuts beef jerky company when he got done competing. So that was really cool. But this is almost as cool as that. It's almost as good as the Wicked Cuts taste. It's not a sponsored segment, but I really love his jerky company. So shout out to Branch Warren. He's looking good. And another guy that was from that same era, that was often battling it out with Branch Warren, is Dennis Wolf. Now, Dennis Wolf, he had a really bad injury that kind of ended his career. It was a nerve injury, and he wasn't able to train the same after that, and he just never looked the same after that. And he kind of, after his last show, which was the Arnold Classic, I believe, he downsized after that. Now, Dennis is a bit younger than Branch. Dennis is 43. Like I said, Branch was 47. And he was kind of forced into retirement. I think Dennis probably wanted to keep competing, but I think it probably was almost a lifesaver that he didn't, because when he was competing, he was pushing the high 200 pounds on stage. I think he was as high as like 270 on stage or something crazy like that, even though he was a taller guy. And he was like a 300-pounder in the offseason. So looking at his physique now, he's completely transformed his physique into a much leaner, much healthier looking physique, and probably a much leaner, much healthier physique in reality. He looks like he's closer to 200 pounds than to 300 pounds now. He really does. I don't know exactly what he weighs now, but he looks like he's 100 pounds lighter than he was when he was competing, and he's probably going to be around for a lot longer than he would have been had he kept competing into his late 40s. So maybe it was a blessing in disguise that, that injury happened and he ended up stopping competing relatively early in his career. Because now he looks great, but more importantly, he looks healthy, and he's downsized, and he's not carrying around this crazy burden on his body, on his heart, all that muscle, and he still looks fantastic. So shout out to Dennis Wolf, shout out to Branch Warren. It's cool to see both those guys kind of from that same era still looking really good well into their retirement. Now, kind of circling back to what we were talking about earlier, how now we've got like a show almost every week. There's another show coming up in about 3 weeks, and that's the Puerto Rico Pro. And one of the guys doing that show, who's 3 weeks out from it now, is Hassan Mustafa. I've been talking a lot about Hassan lately because I think he's really transformed his physique into something a lot different than what it was last year. And you can see that in this side-by-side comparison of 1 day out from last year's Chicago Pro 2021. That's the picture on the left. And on the right, 3 weeks out from the Puerto Rico Pro. Now, I wasn't sure that he was doing this show. I'd heard he was. I knew that he was doing Orlando, which is further out, but he confirms here that he is doing the Puerto Rico Pro in 3 weeks. And obviously, he looks a lot sharper, a lot more detailed, and a lot more streamlined at 3 weeks out this year in 2022 on the right than he looked at just 1 day out on the left. I think we're going to see something crazy from him at this Puerto Rico Pro. And I don't know what that lineup's going to look like in 3 weeks. I don't know who might jump in. But to be completely honest, I'm fully expecting in 3 weeks to be making a video talking about how Hassan won that show and how Hassan is going to the Olympia. If he really did transform his physique, and his goal this year really is to be the most conditioned version of himself, then I think he's going to be extremely dangerous. I've said that ad nauseum, but he's got all the muscle in the world. All he needs to do is really come in shredded, and if he does that, I think it's gonna be lights out. And again, I don't know who's going to jump in that lineup, but I think we're going to see some big things from Hassan in the very, very near future. Now, next up in the news, I want to talk about a guy that I really feel could potentially be the future of classic physique. So he recently earned his pro card, Marcelo De Angelis, Horse MD. We've talked about him before. And as far as I know, the next show that he's doing, I don't know if he's doing a show before this, is going to be the Expo Pro Super Show, where he's going to be trying to punch his ticket to the 2022 Olympia stage. And he's posted these 2 updates in the past day, where he looks insanely big for a classic physique competitor. And I believe, like we talked about, he earned his pro card in the bodybuilding category. But once you earn your pro card, you can kind of pick what division you go to. And he had said after he won that pro card, he wasn't sure if he was going to do bodybuilding or classic physique. And then he announced that he was just a few kilos over the classic physique weight limit for his height. So he would be able to make weight, is what he said. He looks incredibly big for a classic physique guy. And that wasn't even what drew me to his physique. What drew me to his physique was how aesthetic he was. He's got crazy lines, crazy proportions, crazy structure. But these 2 updates, he looks huge for a classic guy. And if he can bring those lines and that structure to the Olympia stage with this kind of size, I think he's going to be super dangerous on the Olympia stage. Because before, on the merit of his conditioning, his lines, and his structure alone, I thought he would be dangerous, but he looks bigger than ever in these updates, and he still looks to be maintaining that same small waist, those same lines. As long as his conditioning doesn't suffer because of it, the guy looks incredible. And these Brazilian guys, like we saw with Ramon Dino, these Brazilian classic guys are not messing around. These guys are the real deal. They seem to have the cream of the crop over there in Brazil as far as classic physique athletes. Now, the final story that I have for you guys today, I also wanted to mention another guy that's living and training in Brazil, even though he's from Russia. GoodVito, Vitaly Ugonikov, one of the biggest names in amateur bodybuilding right now. He's living and training in Brazil, like I mentioned. He's going to be attempting to earn his pro card there in Brazil. I think in September was the date that they announced. And I saw this update, this most muscular pose, and to me, he looks bigger than he's ever been. And to me, this also looked very reminiscent of Big Ramy. The way that Big Ramy hits the most muscular, and also the way that Big Ramy looks in the most muscular, looks very similar to GoodVito. And every time I see a picture like this of GoodVito, it just like blows my mind that this guy is an amateur bodybuilder. This guy is not even a pro, but the size that he carries, it's pretty mind-blowing how big this kid is. And he's in his mid-20s. He's young. He's got a lot of time to improve, a lot of time to figure it out. I don't think it's going to be hard for him to turn pro. So once he does turn pro, he's got a lot of time to really figure out how to nail his conditioning. And he is making the switch to the NPC/IFBB. So when and if he does turn pro, it will be an IFBB Pro League Pro card, which means he will have a shot at getting to the Olympia stage by doing shows in the IFBB, which I think is going to be very interesting once he does earn that pro card, to see what his physique looks like next to some of the biggest and best bodybuilders in the world. Because it's one thing to look like this on Instagram, but once he gets on stage, I'm very interested to see how it pans out when you put him next to a guy like Big Ramy, when you put him next to a guy like Ian Valliere that I think has kind of a similar physique, or Nick Walker, some of these other big young guys. Are they going to totally dominate him and blow him out of the water, or is he going to look just like he looks on Instagram and come in and blow everybody away? But I don't want to put the cart before the horse because he does still have to earn that pro card. It's not a foregone conclusion yet. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about all the stories we discussed today. That's going to wrap it up for the video. Hope you guys had a great long weekend. Hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. Click that bell notification icon to never miss an upload. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out.